Hey, what's up, guys? Jeremy here with the Awareness Revolution. It's our first day at Anarchapulco. I just ran into Kenny here. He's a speaker at the conference this year. He's got a bunch to talk about, so we're going to go ahead and introduce him to you guys, and hopefully we have some fun and learn a little bit in the process. Thanks for agreeing to do an interview, Kenny.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
So, like I said, he's a speaker at the conference. So, my first question I wanted to ask you is what kind of things you're going to be talking about and presenting here at the conference?
So, I've actually got a few talks that I'm giving this weekend. Each of the 4 days of the main conference, I'm the opening speaker for the health and wellness stage. So, I kind of took one big thing and split it up amongst those. So, the first day is about physical health, and then psychological, emotional, and spiritual. So, it'll kind of, people can show up for any one of them, but it'll also build on itself as we go. And I'm still coming up with exactly what the content's going to be. I'm trying to integrate little bits about what the rest of the talks throughout the day will be as well to kind of like set the stage for everybody. And then on Sunday, I'm doing a talk called Building Bridges. The movement is bigger than any of us know on the advocacy stage, which will just be about, how there's all these different organizations and movements that really are all trying to achieve peace and freedom. And people just don't seem to realize that we're all allies. And about some of the trigger words that I personally try to avoid when dealing with people so that I don't scare them off or cause cognitive dissonance. And then on Friday, I'm doing a workshop on raw vegan desserts. So we'll be doing a few recipes, sampling out a bunch of local fruits that most have never heard of, and kind of an open Q&A about veganism, mindful eating, and whatever else people want to talk about.
That's awesome. So the last part with the fruits and everything, is that all included with the main conference?
Now, all the talks are that is one of the like separate workshops. So that's $25 for that workshop. I did a free one last year. They told me I couldn't do a free workshop this year. So I'm just basically trying to cover the cost of all the food. We're gonna do raw cheesecake, raw fudge, a raw vegan pudding, all vegan obviously, a pudding, and then some sunflower seed butter cookies.
That sounds awesome. And yeah, of course, raw food isn't it isn't cheap to make, and it's not easy to make. So yeah, so $25 is actually a really good deal, especially if you're gonna try new foods. I'm really into trying new foods. That's just I don't know. I think it's great. I grew up living off of the same foods over and over and over. So like, it's crazy because I actually, until I started on my health journey, I didn't eat any nuts. I didn't even eat avocados. I mean, I worked at Chili's where I would scoop the green stuff onto the plates for a living. I don't know, thousands of times. And I even washed dishes there. And I would see the plates come back with everything gone except for the green stuff. I didn't even know what it was. I knew it was guac, but I'm like, what the hell is this? And so obviously as soon as I went raw, like full on, that became a staple of my diet. And I'm just sitting here looking back like 6 months ago, I never even ate this stuff. So yeah, so ever since then, I think that's one of the keys to eating healthy is trying new foods because you never know when you might discover your new favorite food. So I'm actually really interested in your talks. I want to check out as much of it as I can. And what you said about the 4 different days of the mental and spiritual and all that, it reminded me of what I was talking about right before this interview about my four elements and everything. Because I think of that too, like of how you broke it down, and I'm like, okay, so yeah, so that's really interesting that you're doing that. Like I said, it sounds like we're a lot alike. We just met today, by the way. It's a pleasure to meet you. But I know you have a few books too. So would you mind go ahead and telling my audience
Yeah,
also
yeah.
about these books that you have?
Show them real quick. Yeah, this is the first time. Yeah, that'd be cool. So I've been blogging full time for a little over 2 years now, and coming down for Anarchapulco, I decided to get some of my writing in physical form for the first time. So I've got the Rainbow Gathering, which if you don't know about it, it's basically a giant anarchist city that forms in the woods every year since 1972. It started with one, and that one has continued happening every July, and now there's like 100 others that happen around the world. So this is something I feel like everybody would really benefit from knowing about and attending, but especially anarchists who often get asked like, well, where's your evidence that it works? Like, well, here's 80,000 people getting together in the woods with no hierarchies and no money and no one being forced to do anything. So that's something that's really important to me. And then I've got one on anarchy and then one that's just kind of on my life. These are both just collections of essays. And then the real life, the role playing game is this concept I'm really excited about. Basically, taking all these different gaming concepts and like lessons and stories from sci fi and fantasy and showing how they can help us live better lives, and how basically, every one of us is playing a role playing game right now, and we're all the heroes of our own game. And if people understand that more and realize that more, life is more enjoyable and you can have a bigger impact. And I feel like this could be life changing for a lot of people. And I'm trying to, largely this one especially, I'm bringing to get other people that have similar ideas and like build this out into a full like book with not just my thoughts on the topic, but anybody else that's kind of thinking the same things. And then one on capitalism, which is more on just economics and how it often ends up being thought of as this like black and white, like, oh, there's capitalism and communism, as those are the only options, when in reality we can be competitive and cooperative at the same time. We can have competition in trading and all of that without anybody being taken advantage of. And there's a whole lot of historical evidence for that just in like anarchist literature and stuff. So this is kind of more trying to expand that conversation so it's not people on the left and the right screaming at each other and not listening to what's actually being said.
It sounds like the last one would probably be a good place for the beginner to start. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say probably that one and the anarchy one are like kind of the more really foundational stuff, because this one goes from like my journey all the way from being a child that got kicked out of a lot of schools and everything up to discovering the word anarchy and discovering kind of what's going on in the world in terms of the power structures and everything.
That brings me to the another question. So, how did you get on this path with the anarchy, health, Anarchapulco? How did this all come to be?
Well, in some way, I've been an anarchist my whole life. Like I said, I got kicked out of more than half a dozen schools by the time I graduated high school. I used to sell drugs full time. I didn't really need the money. It was mostly just because it was something you weren't supposed to do. Always would drive over the speed limit. Like, I just hated people telling me what to do, especially if they didn't have a reason. And you're like, well, why? Because it's the rule, or because I said so. I would throw a tantrum, to say the least, because that doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't seem good enough. You can't just say because I said so. And but in high school at one point they kind of scare tacticked me, and they called the cops in at one point, and they're like, you're old enough that we could charge you as an adult. And I decided to play the game. I decided I was going to figure out where to go to college, and I was going to get a job and all that. And then for 10 years I worked and drank and did drugs and played video games because I just hated my life and wanted to escape all the time. And in 2011 I took a gigantic dose of azaresin mushrooms, like 7 or 8 people's worth of a really good trip, and realized that I had given up myself, and I was just playing all these characters with the people I worked with, or with the people I sold coke to, or the people I sold weed to. Like, there was no me. And from there, everything just started spiraling. I started watching documentaries like Zeitgeist and Loose Change. I got in a relationship with someone who introduced me to GMOs and all the food colorings and all of that. And I quickly went to an all organic diet, cut out the processed stuff. Once I started eating meat rarely, my body started to reject it. So I went vegan just because my body told me to. And yeah, I picked up a book by Emma Goldman in a little used bookstore. It's like this bright orange book that just jumped out at me. And it was the first time I'd ever seen the word anarchy used outside of, riots. And I read the whole book, and I was like, oh, this is me. This is what I've always been. This is what I've been since I was a kid, that people were telling me was just like bad. Like I was being a bad kid. Like, no, this is a lineage of philosophy that goes back hundreds of years. Awesome. And then I found Anarchapulco through, Anarchast and Jeff's interviews, and came to the first one, and immediately realized I didn't want to live in the system at all, really. And I gave up my job, gave up my house, gave up basically all my belongings, and left with a backpack and $200 on my way to my first rainbow gathering. And I've been traveling like that for 4.5 years now.
Yeah, that's really interesting because your story sounds a lot like mine, minus the backpack, which I've thought about. But now I have a daughter, so I can't do that. But what we're actually thinking about doing is, and I'm working on building this up. But like I said, my channel got deleted last year, and I'm wanting to get income coming in online so that I can be free to travel around and get by. Um, and then we would kind of be like doing the same thing, traveling around and kind of just filling it out instead of being stuck in one place. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that. So I'm curious though about that, and I'm sure a lot of people are too. So what is it like traveling around with a backpack and obviously spreading these ideas? Obviously being different. There's not many of us in the world, you know. So just wondering what it's like, how it's been, and how it's changed from the beginning of the time period, which I guess is about 5 years ago for you, uh, to now.
Man, that's a lot. I simple answer. It's been the most amazing, mind blowing experience I couldn't even have imagined before doing it. Um, I mean, I like meeting people when I'm hitchhiking, just random people that pick you up and you have a conversation for 2 hours and then never see each other again, to the people that you run into over and over, because I do a lot of different conferences and festivals and gatherings and stuff. So like I'll meet somebody in Colorado and 9 months later run into them in Guatemala. You know, there's clearly some like patterns. There's little circles that like the movement is kind of flowing through. There's hot spots like Ashland and Denver and Acapulco, and there's these little hot spots all around the world. And I mean, definitely the different. I haven't all really experienced it all that much because I kind of hop between like these groups of people. You know, most of the time I'm like at some transformational festival and I go from there to stay at some intentional community off to the next event. Like I'm kind of spending most of my time with the people that are looking for this stuff. So for me, it's actually, I feel less different than when I was living in one place, because when I was living in Portland there's only a few people around that were like that. Now it's like I just hop from one pocket of these people to another, and it's like I've got this giant tribe that's just decentralized, which is awesome. Like decentralization is what we're all about. Like anywhere I go, I've got people that I know that I can hit them up and they'll take me in. And usually they're like, people are asking me to come because I'm a chef and they want me to come cook for them and everything. And yeah, it's been really beautiful. I think the biggest change is from that first year I didn't really use money. I left with like $200. Probably spent 100 of it before I got to the Rainbow Gathering because I was like carpooling with a friend and stuff. And over the next year, I had maybe $400 or $500 pass through my hands. Did a lot of dumpster diving, a lot of volunteering for events, a lot of, when you're traveling with Rainbow people, especially, everybody just takes care of everybody else. Somebody's got a food stamps card, they're going to spend that whole food stamps card to feed everybody that's in the band. Like that's just how that community works. And then when Steam It became a thing, I got on Steam It like a few weeks after it launched, and then all of a sudden I was making a lot of money. Like my first couple of posts made like $400 or $500 each, and I was like, "Oh shit, I have like 2 years worth of money now." And I just started pumping out content, and it's been really cool being able to do. Like I never would have been able to print books before because that costs money. At the same time, like I've had this like back and forth where I treat it like a job sometimes. I start pumping out content, like focusing too much on it, and I have to like step away. And I started a thing called Tribe Steam Up on there, which was a community abundance generator, I called it. This guy James donated like 2 million Steam to it. So I was distributing like $2,000 a week at one point, and then that all kind of died off as the market tanked and everything. And it's been a wild ride, and just the whole thing is amazing, and I really love being able to just have the experience and like not worry about what's going to come next, and then just be able to share it and help people overcome that like fear of the unknown. It's like so many people are like, "Oh, I want to travel too. I wish I could." And then they talk about how they have thousands of dollars in savings and they're worried about how it might run out a year down the road. I'm like, "Don't worry. Like it's going to run out no matter what. Like money's just money. It's supposed to move. It's just energy that we're supposed to move around. Just do whatever makes you most excited." And that doesn't have to be traveling. It doesn't have to be any particular thing, but do what you love and do what you're excited about, and life's going to be easy. The hard stuff's going to be easy because you're still doing what you love.
You know, that's true. I really like that phrase, do what you love. I feel like school should have been focused on that. You know, figured out what the students love and then helping them on that, knowing, setting them up for a journey of chasing that. Obviously, when you've got some sort of standardized curriculum, where everyone's doing the same thing and we're all unique individuals, at least we're supposed to be. That's those two concepts can't coexist. It's one or the other. And obviously we see where the system is they're trying to create uniform students, cookie cutter students, in some cases that actually wear uniforms. I mean, you can't think different, you can't look different, definitely don't be different. And so it's like almost like it's kind of set up to beat the uniqueness out of the kids, and trap their brain into thinking a certain way instead of thinking outside the box, because it's like the answer is this, and if you don't give me this answer, then it's wrong. And in the real world, that's not the case. Sometimes, oftentimes it's just there's all kinds of different answers, and one person's truth may be different from the other person's truth. I'm kind of digressing here, but you ended with "do what you love," and it just, I mean, it's a really powerful concept that really goes beyond um, traveling or anything. Because like you said, it may not be traveling for you, but so if you get nothing else from this interview, I would say take that piece and apply it in the way that he did. And if he can travel around with a few $100 a year, just imagine what you can do. You can't say that you can't do it if he's did it off a few $100s. So you mentioned Steemit. I love Steemit. My handle is steemit.com/a revolution, for awareness revolution. It's kind of like a social media site, if you haven't heard of it, like Facebook, but instead of just liking it and that's it, you can get paid for liking other people's content. You get paid for commenting on other people's content, and you get paid obviously for creating your own content. So it's a great platform. I actually wish that I would have started a year. I started a year after it launched. I saw when Jeff Berwick, when he first talked about it, and I was like, ah, well, I've got a lot going on right now. I don't know about this, So I'm like, I'm gonna wait and see how it goes. And a year later, I'm like, man, I should have been on this, because I quickly got more followers and more engagement on Steemit than I was on Facebook. And I've been on Facebook for, I think, almost 10 years or something like that. And like now, I still haven't made a dollar off anything on Facebook. You know what I mean? So, I mean, and the type of people that are on there is different. So if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with Steemit, it's spelled STEEMIT.com, and it's free to open an account, and you earn a cryptocurrency known as Steem, which can be later traded for Bitcoin, which can later be traded for US dollars. So you can make money. It is real. So I encourage you to join and check out my channel, A Revolution. And then also, if you would, tell them how they can find you on Steemit and where else they can get a hold of you, or maybe in the future get one of your books or anything else that you'd like to leave them with.
Yeah, on Steemit, it's Kenny's Kitchen. So steemit.com/at Kenny's Kitchen. That's short for Kenny's Conscious Kitchen, is my kind of like business name, sort of. So my website is kennysconsciouskitchen.com, but that was too many characters for a Steam handle. And on YouTube, that's like the other place I put my content, and that's just Kenny Palurintano. It'll be in the description. Nobody seems to be able to spell it, so we'll just leave it at that. Steam's definitely the best place to find me, because it's where I put everything, my writing and my video and stuff. I don't really post my writing anywhere else at the moment, because the blockchain keeps it there for me forever, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, I would say, I mean, just take chances, really. Like, if you're worried about something, get over it. Like, no, like, we never know what's going to happen. Like, fear of the unknown is used as an excuse to not do so many things, but we never know anything. Like, even if you decide to get into this solid job with a solid house and all of this, you could still get hit by a car on your way to work. The company could still go out of business. Your house could burn down. Or really good things too. You could win the lottery. Like, good or bad, but like, the idea that we ever know what's happening is ridiculous. And I think most people just use as an excuse to not do new things, because they're scared of new. They're not scared of unknown. They're scared of new. And new is where we get the most growth. New is where we find exciting things. New is where we meet new people and build amazing connections. And new's how we change the world. The same old thing is what's got, war and famine and oppression. New is any number of possibilities. And yeah, I think get out and do something that you've wanted to do for a long time. I highly recommend everyone in the world make it to a rainbow gathering. If you go to my website, kennysconsciouskitchen.com, I've got a spreadsheet. It's like an embedded Google sheet of transformational events around the world, including a bunch of the different rainbow gatherings, things like Anarchapulco festivals. Like, I think for a lot of people, it's just knowing that it's out there, like actually being able to see, like, oh, there's a thing in my state or the next state over. Just get out there, check it out. Take 2 or 3 days off work, go to some event that you may have never thought of going to, spend $100 on it, or go as a volunteer. You'll meet new people, you'll change your life, and if nothing else, it's a great experience, even if you go right back to the same place you were before.